Hey guys, what's going on? We are back here with Paul for his return part two. How my life would have been today were it not for American Musical Supply. What is this going to be like a dream sequence? Are we going to like have a what if scenario? I wonder if it's going to be like an animation, one of the animations he does. These very crude animations. All right, Paul. What would have happened?
If they had not fired me, here's what would happen then. I would have
Okay.
continued what I'd started doing after I switched her off earlier, and I would have been helping those 30 families that got thrown out of that hotel I stayed in for 13 months, where I walked to work a mile and a half a day, or a mile and a half one way each day, 5 or 6 days a week, through the winter, a bad winter, and the hot summer. I would have been helping them. I would have been back to my other projects. Now that the gift was done, the gift was a big involved project of its own, something I might have even, like I said before, poured it over for more general consumption. I don't know if I would have done that or not. I didn't have any immediate plans to do it. But there's a lot of other projects I was working on. I have the 3D rendering and graphic design. I was learning that. At that time, I had the tools of the trade. I had my drawing tablet, which is now gone. I had all these things. I had the computer that I could see, and that I
Would that been of any use to American Musical Supply or your 3D renders? Like, let's just say you do get very proficient at it. I mean, how does it integrate into American Musical Supply's like online presence? Like, I've looked through their channel and it's probably not really their template or their format. So, mm, yeah, and like whoever they have doing that channel, it has a very clean cut, presented style to it. It actually looks pretty good. Um, I think they had that handled, Paul, so maybe your talents would have been wasted.
could use in a workspace where I could function with it. I had my other computers. I had my big monitors, which I don't have anymore. And on my days off, I could go get a hotel room for 1 or 2 days, and the things I need a big screen
Was he really lugging around all these monitors everywhere? That's pretty funny.
for, I could do that. So I would have kept doing that all the way through now and going forward. I would have kept learning new things, mastering new skills. I would have kept creating new projects, more of these 3D renders, the projects that I had right about now that I plan to launch as profitable projects like the meditative drones and merchandise that uses those 3D renders that I create.
Yeah, Paul missed the boat on that. I want to say like maybe 10 years ago when like ASMR, that left brain, right brain, sort of left ear, right ear, sprinkle some water on the microphone thing took off. I don't know if he was doing it around then, but yeah, you had to be there from the beginning because I think I don't think it really matters that you're there or you're particularly talented when you launch this stuff. It just it matters more that you were there at the beginning. That's where I like a lot of these creators just somehow lingered, got big channels, and parlayed that into something bigger. And yeah, like if Paul kind of got in a little bit earlier, and he could have had success with it. I mean, the meditative drones he did, or on his previous channel, weren't too bad. Like they're not high production, but if you just want a dumb noise machine to like block out your annoying neighbors, Paul could have been your man. So yeah, like what I mean is like if he got this channel going early for his meditative sound machines in a time where it wasn't really out there, yeah, he could have gone somewhere with that. That could have been a money spinner for Paul. Like there are some really basic ass ASMR channels out there that just got in there first, but somehow, some way have 3 million subscribers, and you know, you do look at the production levels on some of these videos now, like some of these newer channels, and you think, holy shit, like they're pouring either good money into it or they just are extraordinarily talented.
Granted, it's not going to lead to a whole bunch of money, but every bit helps, and it's nice to get back into that kind of thing. It was about this time, August, September, that I had originally planned to do that because there's some very important things I had to take care of first, which of course I could never take care of. I would have taken care of those things if I had not gotten fired. I would have continued doing my extraordinary job at work, working overtime, working all the time, coming in on my day off for training. They did pay me a little bit for that, but I mean, coming in all the way out there for training, because the training was on my day off the whole 7 years. But training was fun because I learned a lot, and they give you all these free gifts.
Yeah, that's why you went. And they always did it on a Sunday to avoid like maybe a lot of what they did at American Musical Supply was to not really include Paul. So because he always complained about that, it was like all these things, all these training programs, all these vendors who would come in, they would always come in on his days off, and he was always like, "Oh, it's curious. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Among the many things I lost, bags of t-shirts and hats and all kinds of cool gadgets and gizmos from these music manufacturers. So I would have done that, and because back around February 1st, which is between the time that I started getting over what the backstabber did to me and when this harassment complaint nonsense started, in between that, because I was pulling myself out of that funk, and wonderful things like what my supervisor did for me helped to pull me out of that. Because of that, I was going back and looking at my spreadsheet.
It gave him a $600 guitar. Is he felt so bad for him. Like, it couldn't work. The guy obviously couldn't work out why he was in a funk. I don't know if Paul explicitly stated it to him, but yeah, he ended up giving him some like $600 guitar.
Sheets running the numbers, and I said, wow, I have never saved this much money in 3 months before. And despite the problems with this car, you may remember in one video, on the very day I got locked out of the building, when I had to sit down with this local HR person and my manager, and the local HR person went upstairs for a moment, and I talked to the manager, and I told him, I was trying to get to the store, I didn't have time, so I was going to have to do it tomorrow. I was going to buy a $300 code reader for cars, because I've been...
Oh, what? Why? Imagine plugging that into the Ford Fusion and it's like it gives you the code error of your car is a complete rust shit bucket, Paul.
Researching that for the last week. Researching like anything else I get interested in, I researched the daylights out of it. And it was more than obvious that $300 investment was probably going to save me many hundreds, if not a couple $1,000s in repairs on it.
Yeah, this is how like reckless Paul is with his money. So he's going to put all this money into a code reader for his car, and the car has a very fundamental issue: is that all the bottom of the car underlayer is basically rusting off, because it's, I guess, the way the Minnesota roadways and highways are salted. It just like wreaks havoc. So unless you have like the proper body protection, underbody protection, you might never get ahead of this. And this is where Paul is, because he spends so much money on maintenance, but it's not the proper kind of maintenance.
In this car. And, like I do with anything else, I was going to go to our chat system at work and let everybody know I have a powerhouse code reader now. Please, if you want to see if there's anything wrong with your car, let me know. Because I want to share that with them, and because that will help me learn how to use the reader, using it on all these different vehicles. So I would have bought that, and with the tools that I had at the time, and with a place to use those tools in that parking garage if I needed to, I would have been able to take care of an awful lot of the problems with this car. And I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now. I also could have most likely extended the life of that transmission, which is still in peril of going out any day. But now I have a better understanding of what's going on with that. And I would have had that understanding back then with the tools and the code reader to deal with it. In other words, it was much less likely I was going to have a catastrophic problem with the car. The car was not going to cost me the kind of money that my previous car cost me, where it took almost every paycheck. It would take entire paychecks quite often. One repair after another, the same repairs over and over, round robin, for years.
And he's meant to be a genius, like a highly intelligent man, and yet he was just throwing all this like money. He was chasing good money after bad, so he's plugging all this money into the Cougar, which was doomed. It was utterly doomed because it had the same fundamental issues that this Ford Fusion has, is that all the underbody was completely wrecked and it was rusting away, like the chassis was rusting away. And yeah, like I think his gas tank was literally falling out. He had to put some, ocky straps on it or strap it in. Otherwise, it would have just cut loose from the car. And it was, at what point do you not just completely cut ties with the car? You bring it to a wrecker, and I don't know, you look at maybe buying a second-hand car, or I don't know if you can lease it. There's always Paul problems, the usual Paul problems with buying anything officially. So you would have to buy it, I guess, second-hand through a private deal. But yeah, at what point do you not realize that it's over for the, like, you could have cut ties with that Cougar a long time ago and saved up enough money to possibly buy something that's going to be more trustworthy on the roads.
That's what kept me homeless for so many years. Otherwise, I would have been out of homelessness probably in the third, fourth year after I started that job. It was that car and public storage in California who kept jacking up the car.
Like they're just the worst excuses ever. Like they're just like, I feel even like a very, very unintelligent, low IQ person could have figured this out much quicker than Paul.
Cost of my storage there, so that every raise I got every year didn't matter anymore, because public storage was charging me more than I got with the raise. So I was actually losing money. I'm in a huge Walmart-sized parking lot, completely empty, and this guy pulled up here, stared at me for a bit, and then turned, and he drove so close to the front of the car here that he almost hit it, while staring at me the whole time. These are the things I have to deal with. Do you have that when you're at home? Do you look at the window and see somebody staring in the window at you?
I know, it depends if you have some sort of apartment building or something that like is on floor level, and you have a frontage, you have like a big window that kind of just looks out towards the street, yeah, there could be a guy like just stopping and staring at you and looking at you through your window. You're like, yeah, it probably happens to people.
When I had that safe place at work, which is a nice, serene, private environment, I wouldn't have that problem. So everything would have been going back to normal like the previous. I wouldn't have that problem. When I had that safe place at work, which is a nice, serene, private environment, I wouldn't have that problem.
No, that's a lie. I mean, I just did a whole bunch of videos of like your constant harassment and stalking tactics of these people in these car parks, in that underground car park, especially. Like, you were terrified. You were on the run, Paul.
So everything would have been going back to normal like the previous 6 years, 6.5 years, almost 7 years really, at work. The whole time I would have been at peace. I would not be dealing with all these threats and loud, horrific, violent noises that
Ain't no way. Ain't no way. You were at peace, like, quote unquote, at peace, when you were doing the homeless consultant videos. But you would always find something. You're a hammer in search of a nail, Paul. You would always find something to be completely aggrieved about.
shake everything. I wouldn't be dealing with that. Because I was running those numbers on the spreadsheet, and it was obvious that I was finally, after all these years, able to save money. And I was saving it really well. By the numbers I had, by this time right now, beginning of September 2024, I was going to have enough money to get the stuff out of storage in California. Now, I don't think I would have done it. I think I would have waited till next year, 2025.
Yeah, because he always had some dumb excuse. Like, he couldn't do the journey because I guess you got to cross over the Rockies and you have to time it well. Otherwise, he might get stranded again. And I'm like, okay, maybe in this shit bucket of a car, it would be true. But at that point, you would have decided it's time to move on from this car. If I want to get into California, I need a more reliable car. So the Ford Fusion has to go.
And the reason is because I need to have not just enough money to do it, but I need to have a big wad of savings on top of it as a backup in case something happens and I get stranded in California, or I go to California, I bring all this stuff back, and then my transmission goes out. I have to have more money.
To stay in California, it would be much better weather. I think I won't say they have better homeless policies, but there's more opportunity for getting some sort of government assistance. I think it's a haven for the homeless, and they're like homeless by design, like, because it's from all I've read and all I know is that it's very charitable in terms of looking after the homeless. It's just that none of these homeless policies ever fucking work. It's just people who I'm guessing there are a lot of people hard on their luck, but because it's an expensive state to live in, but also, the Gibbs are pretty good.
Saved up. I might have even had that much money by that time. But more than anything, I just couldn't logistically put that together that quickly. For me to drive all by myself over the Rocky Mountains, hauling all that stuff, it takes a lot of planning, and you got to make sure it goes right. I've driven the Rocky Mountains enough to know what can happen there.
But I think, like, in California, at the very least, if you are living in one of these big cities, the homeless situation it's not going to be a picnic for Paul. Like, if he thinks that the homeless people around him now are bad, like, if you get into California, I'm thinking it's a nightmare, especially like LA or something.
And I've gotten stranded out there before. I don't want that happening again. So, but the thing is, I would have had the money to do it technically. I probably, though, would have paid the money for another year, gotten robbed by public storage, and it would be the summer of next year, 2025, when after, at that time, 19 years, I would finally have all the things to remember my family and my youth by, up to age 40, back in my possession here in Minnesota. And with that...
Yeah, I don't know. I always think about this. It's like, why didn't you just get like a third party to go in there and retrieve your stuff, like, maybe not piecemeal, but maybe do like certain like sections of what you want. So get them to grab it up, mail it to a address in Burnsville, someone you trust, maybe through the local library or something, and have it sent to you so you don't have to go to California. I mean, there's got to be a way. You got to think outside the box. There has to be a way to get that stuff to you without driving there, right? But again, Paul doesn't trust anyone. He doesn't have anyone in his life, so it's tough.
It would be like getting a $400 a month raise because I would no longer have that bill. That would be, I can't express to you how exciting that would be to get that stuff back.
Yeah, probably the upfront cost on doing that would probably it'd be a little bit expensive, I think, and getting someone trustworthy would be a bit of a hassle. But once it's done, and then you consider how much money is sunk into the storage locker in California, is there's no way that that would be any more than what he's paying up front to this storage locker in California over the years. Can't be any. He's thrown out numbers, I think, for both lockers, like something to around 30 grand or something like that.
Don't forget, after 18 years in California, Southern California, when I go through that stuff, I have to be very careful. It's going to take a long time, if at all. I'm speaking as if I can do it. It's gone. When I was going to have to go through that stuff, you've got to open every box carefully and look for rattlesnakes, scorpions, God knows what.
Oh, fuck. Where is the storage locker? Like, I would assume it's pretty well kept, and it's weather sealed. And how are these scorpions and rattlesnakes getting in there? Unless it's a really shitty, storage place.
18 years sitting there.
I'm guessing, yeah, maybe like some of them on what's that show, Storage Wars or whatever. Like some of them do look a bit ratty. Like, yeah, you could probably get a rattlesnake go in there or something.
It wasn't going to be easy, but I was going to be able to get it done finally. With that extra money I would make with that $400 a month, plus I would almost certainly have another raise at work, and this time it would actually count because it wouldn't be taken up by public storage. It would be about 1 year later when I finally, at that time, after 12 years of homelessness and 9 years of working for American Musical Supply, if I made it the other 2 years, 9 years of working there, 11 or 12 years of being homeless, I would have finally gotten into a home. But here's
So he's homeless for 12 years. He had a scattering of jobs in between AMS, between whatever medical field he was working in. He worked at a truck stop. I think he had another job in between that too. And then he got AMS. So you've got 12 years, you've got a bit of spotty work history, and then you get like, I want to say 8 years of AMS, like continuously. Like, how in the fuck do you not work out your situation in terms of like finding somewhere to stay? Like, how do you not work that out? Like, that's not a government situation. That's not your employer situation. That's not the man putting his foot on you, Paul. It's just complete incompetence by design, or just total incompetence by you.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't just get into a home. I would get into a home of my choosing, a place that I want to be in.
Yeah, it's always like a caveat or a pre-qualifier for Paul. Like, nothing is what it seems. It's not like he would accept a humdrum apartment in a tower complex. It has to be, the porridge is just right. Like, so, yeah, I always say like he needed like some sort of Ted Kaczynski setup. He's in the middle of like 1,000 acres or something, and he's just got the little cottage in the middle of nowhere. But even then, I don't know. It would probably still be an issue somewhere, somehow.
And when I move in there, I'm going to empty out the storage here so that I don't have to pay that bill either. And I'm going to take that $15,000 home recording studio, all that gear that I bought over the last 7 years, and some of it was going all the way back to when I first moved to Minnesota. More stuff than you can imagine. In my opinion, it would have been the best home studio anyone has ever had. I had so much unique, awesome, cool, rare stuff that I have to just get rid of, almost give it away, pennies on the dollar. Stuff that I will never find again. I never could. If I won the lottery today.
I thought you sold it. Like, so what's the deal, Paul? I thought you're at the stage now where you've cleared out everything, you've sold everything that is of value, but you still talk about clearing the storage locker out. So have you even gone in there? And like, the last time he attempted it, he didn't really get much out because he was having mobility issues from sitting in the car all day. So I'm guessing he hasn't really, he's just sort of maybe spun his tires on this one, and like he hasn't actually cleared anything out of that storage locker.
Today, I couldn't find half of that stuff again. That's how rare it was. Many of the guitars I lost are so rare, you can't even find them online. I would never find one again. Certainly not ones that play as well as the ones I had. All that is lost. I would take those guitars. I would take those synthesizers, those microphones, everything that I lost. Those drum machines. My $600 MIDI controller that was the center focus of the entire home studio that controlled...
MIDI? Is that a format anyone actually gives a shit about? MIDI?
Everything. And so many other things I can't even remember. Like 20, 25 guitar pedals that can also be used with these keyboards and synthesizers. All this stuff I had. I would take my computer monitors.
I mean, they're valuable to you, Paul. Obviously, they have sentimental value. But in terms of like resale value, are they worth anything to anyone? Could you sell it in a kind of antique or retro market in terms of like musical equipment? Is that desirable to people, or people look like, nah, that thing is like a decade out of date?
The big 2 curved computer monitors, all that I would take into my new home. And with that, I would have a home recording studio that is second to none and absolutely tailored to what I do. Not off-the-shelf stuff. perfect for what I do. With that, I would have open to me at least 8 profit centers. And I can envision more. I can envision at least one more that I'm not going to mention here, but there are others. I'd be making my own music, duh. I would be able to record other artists, both in the studio setting and live, artists and entire bands. I would be working on my meditative drones, and with a home studio, I could do those so much more efficiently and quickly. So much more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. Like, I think Paul has completely missed the boat on this one. Like maybe 10 years ago, the drones and all that would have been, I don't know, if he got on the ground floor of that early when kind of it was taking off on YouTube and just established himself. Didn't even matter that he would be completely like, I don't know if they'd be terrible or not. I've heard a few of them, they're all right. They're nothing to like write home about. But as long as he established something early and got his foot in the door and perhaps advertised it, like bought some, I don't know, some, you know, something to promote him in the feed, in the algorithm. I don't know, he could have got something going there, but it's just way too late for that now.
You can't know how much easier it would be to do those drones. Voiceovers. Some of them for profit, some of them not. I always wanted to read the sermons of Charles Spurgeon, you know, as if you're in that huge church of his. But also, in terms of speaking voice, when I'm not riled up, I have a pretty good speaking voice for a lot of things there. Music and stingers for commercials and podcasts. Those are those little, the music, the beats and stuff that you hear behind a commercial. Or these stingers where it just comes in and boom! Care 11. One of the most misnamed television stations ever.
Would that really be a money spinner, Paul? I don't know. I feel like that can be easily outsourced to someone not even in your country for like pennies on the dollar.
There was a guy who worked at American Musical Supply. See, I'd been there so long. I'd seen presidents come and go. I had seen janitors come and go. I had seen entire businesses in our building come and go.
You became the damn janitor, Paul. That's crazy.
I had seen human resource people come and go. The one who fired me was the 3rd human resource person I worked with. She knew nothing about that place. She hadn't been there from the beginning like I had. One of the people she never met, because she's so new, was a guy who was there for many years. His name was Dan. He made these commercial beats and stingers. He made so much money from that he was able to just quit his job. That's how much money you make from that one source. Music, sound, music and film.
Yeah, but that was probably years ago, Paul. And it wasn't even your idea. Like, you're just cribbing off this Dan guy. And, you know, what if Dan has the market in this area sewed up? Like, you'd have to get out of here. You'd have to get out of, like, Minnesota probably. And I don't know. Seems like a hard market to get into, especially at your age, Paul.
Film, music for film and video games. That was going to be a tough one for me because I'm not the best composer in the world, but it's something I was going to give it a shot. And it's a hard field to break into, I'll admit. It would have been available to me with my home studio. Sound
Yeah, that's another non-starter, Paul. I can guarantee that.
design for film and computer games. That is something I'm really good at, making sound effects and Foley.
You know, maybe on a commission basis, you get in with like a startup or something.
Do you have any idea how much Hollywood pays for these things? Just for a simple sound. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how much the computer gaming industry will pay? And lastly,
they kind of have our own internal studios for that.
if possible, I would love to go back to doing wedding videos. I love doing wedding videos for people. They're such a happy time. And one of the things I was known for was always providing really good audio with the video, which a lot of people didn't. And it's so important. With the studio, with all the portable components I had in it, if I had been able to get more video equipment and go back to doing video, not just weddings, but I mean any special event, bar mitzvahs, whatever. I love doing that kind of stuff, creating those wonderful, happy memories, the very things that I lost in my California storage. Those are the 8 profit centers I would have had from that home studio. And at that point, I would be making maybe a pretty good amount of money from those profit centers on top of my job. And both my job and all of these would involve the things I personally love to do more than anything else. Music, audio production, graphic design, all these things. I would have a magnificent life, starting about 2 years from now. And between now and then would have been really good, despite being homeless. I had worked my ass off for 9 years. The last 7 years with American Musical Supply. 9 years, that's almost a decade. That's more than 2 presidential terms. That I worked my ass off under these horrific conditions that I live in to climb and claw my way out of homelessness without taking a penny of government assistance, doing it myself through sheer hard work and patience. It was a great American success story in the.
If you're not like initiated or you don't really know anything about Paul's story, like you would take him at face value on this one, and you would think, oh, he did all this, he tried so hard, but in the end it didn't matter. The truth is he pissed away a lot of his money on random shit, on musical, like on guitars, on all this like gear and equipment that was to be for his happy ending, but it never came. So he kind of just like he hoarded it in these storage lockers and stuff like that. And yeah, like he was not good with his money. essentially in the end. And obviously he plowed a lot of money into the cars, which also was just a complete money sink. So if you've ever had a situation in your life where you know straight up that this is not going to return on the investment, like you've chucked a whole lot of money, good money after bad, and you have that sobering moment where like you just say enough is enough. I've spent too much money. I've poured so much money into this thing, and it's just going nowhere. And you tuck your tail and you kind of like walk off and say, all right, well, it was a thing. I tried it. Oh well. But for Paul, it was just, it's never really occurred to him that these investments, these things that he did, were effectively tanking him financially. Um, and he'll blame everything else around him externally, but himself. And this is where you're not really getting the story from him. He'll always skew it towards what's best for Paul, what's going to have him looking shiny and bright. But the reality is, he was a complete fucking idiot with his money, and this is why he's in these cars. Outside of all the trauma from one of his neighbors who kind of like drove him nuts, um, this is why he's perpetually homeless.
I'm making. And one of the other things I was considering, I don't know if I would do it. When it's all said and done, and I spend a year or two relaxing, there might come a point when I would write a book about that whole experience of that great American success story. And you know what? If American musical
Apparently, he's been published 3 times. I can't find his work anywhere.
supply hadn't fired me, they would have actually gotten a lot of positive press from something like that.
Yeah, that was his last. His very last video was the note he left. Like that was his last sort of message to the world was me. American Musical Supply and I should have gone into a formal contract of like, I'm going to offer you a marketing opportunity. So Paul is the beat down, downtrodden guy, let go unfairly, but American Musical Supply will see the errors of their ways and rehire him, get him out of the car, put him into the studio apartment with no noisy neighbors and this like sick setup that he wants. And through that like act of goodwill, they can market that in a way that generates like, positive press for the business. And through that, people say, you know what? I want to shop with them. They're good people. They gave this dude a chance. Isn't that insane? Like, it's crazy. That was what he nearly left us on. And he's still going with it. Just crazy.
Because that job was my lifesaver. The job they stole from me, that they took away from me for no reason, without talking to me about whatever the problem is, without ever accusing me of doing anything wrong, without providing me a reason for firing me. They voluntarily chose the one option, as you're going to see in an upcoming video, out of 9 options that I came up with, and they might be able to even come up with more. 9 options, 8 of which were completely non-catastrophic to me. Everything I just told you about what my life would be like today would have happened if they had pursued 8 of those options, any of those 8 options. The only one option that would lead to what you're seeing here is the one that they chose, and they chose it immediately. I have no evidence that they even considered any of the other options. And the other options made sense, but I'll talk about that in another video. That is where I would be today. 2 days ago, yesterday, on Labor Day, Monday is the 2nd this year, I would have been at work, like always, working with the people who I loved working with so much. They were so interesting and fun and hilarious and talented. Working in that place was more like a party than a job. It was fantastic. At the workplace, not corporate. Corporate cast a dark shadow over everything and human resources. And it was all destroyed by one malicious person, one young girl who probably still remembers her high school locker number. So young and naive and irresponsible, so immature, that she obliterates another person's life. But the HR department was so equal.
Yeah, I work with young people. I try not to have any deeper interaction with young women than I need to. Like I just don't do it. I have a partner. Like I am cordial and friendly enough, and I'm helpful. But beyond that, like I don't need it. I don't want it. And this is where like Paul should have been at. Is like don't invest. Don't throw yourself at these young women thinking like they can relate to you. They can't. They won't ever be able. You're just generations apart at this point. And why he wanted like so, if we were to take him at his word, there was no. Uh, his intentions weren't driven by eros love. It was purely agape, which is so dumb. It's basically a soul connection, like purely platonic, of course. Like, but he felt like he had some sort of like connection to this young woman that transcended any biological urge. of his, and she completely gutted that trust. And my advice is, outside of purely a working relationship, I would advise just don't get involved with these young women anymore, Paul. Straight up, in any context.
Equally irresponsible and unprofessional and immature that they did not hold her feet to the fire and get the job done that should have been done. I'm going to tell you option number one right now. I'll leave the rest for another video. Option number one: sit down with me and the backstabber in the same room and talk about it like grown, mature, adult professionals. That is the most appropriate way to handle that. It makes the most sense. It is the most appropriate.
Now, Paul, let's just say they went ahead with this like what if scenario. Do you think you could have like held your tongue and been an appropriate person in this conversation? Could you have been the adult in the room? Because she's a little girl and she doesn't know what she's doing. So could you have conducted yourself in a proper manner? I don't think so. I think you would have stepped on a whole bunch of landmines, like instantly. So I don't think that scenario would have played out well either, Paul. It probably would have maybe had you end up in handcuffs.
Non-catastrophic outcome. Sit down and talk about it. I made a video about communication here. Communication is key to solving problems and conflict resolution. AMS has the conflict resolution skills of North Korea.
See, that's interesting. Is like, if you were to get Paul in a room and really like say, what the fuck is going on with you? What is wrong with you? Like, would he get his dander up? Would he get his back up against the wall and really give it to you? Or would he kind of be conciliatory and like, well, yeah, you look, this is why I am like I am. I've had some traumatic experiences in my life, and it makes me a little bit off kilter, and I'm not, my social cues are a little bit out of whack, and I guess I just didn't really know how to deal with this young girl properly, and I might have said and done some things that weren't really what she wanted and what she was asking for, and I read into it completely a different way. I do apologize. I can guarantee to you, young backstabber, I will never do this again. I will cut ties. This is going to be a professional relationship if we need to have any communication at all. Apparently, she was in a completely different office too, which is like even more spooky, because why are you having interactions with her then? Like, if she's in a completely section of part of the AMS, call center thingy, like she was a different department, so he's going over there and seeking interaction. I don't know.
If they had not done what they did deliberately, if they had chosen that simple option, let me face my accuser and let's talk it out like grown adults, like professionals. And you know what? We'll come to an agreement. We'll get it fixed.
I mean, maybe in the past they did that, and a lot of these companies found out the hard way that, oh, this is a really bad idea. Like, let's diplomatically work this out. Let's come to a resolution face to face. And then it's just gone like horribly wrong.
Shake hands, and both of us will go back to work, and neither of us has to lose our job or get obliterated. It was that simple all along. Like Dorothy just having to click her heels and say there's no place like home. That's how simple all of this was the whole time. But human resources is so full of hatred that they had another agenda. It wasn't about solving the conflict. It was about, hot damn, here's our opportunity to finally get rid of the homeless person who we could never get rid of by any other means because he's probably the best employee we have.
Yeah, like from all reports, Paul was a very good, he was good at what he did. People seem to like him, according to that like one dude on Reddit. So if they had this like endless vendetta against someone that was homeless, like if this was their reason death, why did they keep you around for so long? Like, I don't really get that point. If this was, it all hinges on the fact that they just hated homeless people. They were osteophobes. It's just a really, really bad premise to like hinge it all upon, that they were just looking for this excuse. Because if they could have manufactured an excuse like ages ago, if they were so dastardly and nefarious and evil, like they could have come up with an excuse to get rid of you.
This wasn't a deliberate attack. Human resources wanted this outcome that you're seeing. But it could have been the way I just described instead. It could have been on Labor Day, I could have been at work with people I love, having a great time, earning yet another PTO day that I would probably never use. and I would be happy, and I would be at peace, and I would be well nourished, and I would be clean with good hygiene and showers, and it would just all be good, just like it had been for all those years prior.
Yeah, he makes this distinction every now and again. It's like, I guess he liked the culture of AMS, so the people around him to an extent. Now, to an extent, because he had another side where anything to do with management or people he felt were like disciples of the management, the ass kissers, like the kiss ups, the brown noses, he didn't like them. So he had like he pointed a few fingers at a few people in previous, like especially in the homeless consultant phase of his YouTube career, where he was like fingering people as, you know, kind of like henchmen of management. But also he liked the people immediately around him in terms of the call center, the everyday kind of 9 to 5 clock punches. I don't know. Paul is like, he's poles apart on that in terms of, he goes back and forth. So he does make the distinction every now and again.
Why does this YouTube channel exist? This Diary of a Homeless Man Being Exterminated? Not because of me. It's because of them. The same reason that I'm in this life-threatening situation, which there's no way out of. It is going to take my life. And I had clearly explained that to Human Resources, our local human resource rep and my manager, repeatedly. I made it clear that losing my job was a death sentence, and out of 9 options that I can come up with.
Yeah, he had this spiel for this, like this. I'll have to get to that video eventually. Is the truck stop guy, the guy it was like the interim between the medical field job and AMS. And he had this whole spiel and bile ready for this guy too. Yeah, it's just like a repeated cycle of this.
8 of which actually makes sense, and 1 of which does not. They chose the one option that makes no sense and causes me this much harm. It was deliberate. Anyone with eyes that see can tell that. That's all I'm going to say in this video.
Alright guys, that's the video. Paul's return is complete. Yeah, like, unfortunately, he doesn't really have much to say in terms of like what has been going on the last 2 to 3 months. We're not really caught up on that side of things. It looks like nothing has changed, and I even suspect that he really hasn't made any attempt to sell anything in this storage locker because he keeps talking about clearing it out. So there's still obviously equipment and stuff in there that he could sell. But yeah, the last time he went to actually clear it out, he was so weak, like his mobility issues were too much. He might need a rascal or something. Like, he needs someone to give him a rascal or something so he can like just drive around in these little scooters and do things. Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, it is a thing where he's just like hopelessly caught in the cycle. I would have thought maybe over those 2 months, something else would have happened in his life. Maybe he's back in these like group home situations, or he's dealing with the churches again, and they're the target of his ire again. But no, it's he's still in the car. It's still this same situation. It didn't change. I thought, I unfortunately, like, I was the goose that took him at his word in terms of like this was the end. He disappeared off YouTube, so I was like, okay, well, maybe it did actually happen where he was forced out of his car and it was looking pretty grim. But no, I guess nothing really changed. We'll see in the next videos, but I guess his next video will be more of this sort of theory crafting and what if scenarios with American musical supply. So they are still on his mind 24/7. Alright guys, till next time.